I lived for Mondays. Most people dreaded them, but as the IT director for Meridian Financial Group, Mondays meant a fresh week of projects, new challenges, and the quiet hum of servers doing exactly what they were supposed to do. Our office occupied 3 floors of a downtown high-rise, and I had spent 5 years building the infrastructure from the ground up. Everything ran like clockwork. Everything except Karen. Karen worked in human resources, though her actual job title seemed far less important to her than her self-appointed role as office culture enforcer. She had been with the company for 7 years, which she mentioned approximately 3 times per day, and she treated this tenure like a doctoral degree in workplace authority. She lived for rules, procedures, and most importantly, making sure everyone knew when they were breaking them. Her desk sat in a high-traffic area near the kitchen, which gave her a perfect vantage point to monitor comings and goings. She had short blonde hair cut in what I can only describe as the signature style, always wore statement necklaces that clinked when she walked, and possessed a voice that could cut through 3 walls and a fire door. At first, her behavior seemed merely annoying. She would send building-wide emails about proper microwave etiquette. She created a sign-up sheet for the coffee maker. She left passive-aggressive notes about the thermostat. But then she discovered that Mondays were when my team did our maintenance windows, which meant we occasionally needed to interrupt services for updates. And that's when Karen decided to make Mondays her personal crusade against the IT department. Before we go further into this story of technical warfare, do me a favor and hit that like button if you are enjoying this tale of petty office revenge. And subscribe to KarenEatWorld for more stories of entitled people getting exactly what they deserve. Trust me, you will not want to miss where this is going. It started small. I would send out the required 72-hour notice about a planned maintenance window, something like, the email server will be offline Monday from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. for critical security updates. Karen would immediately reply all with questions. Why Monday? Can't this be done on the weekend? This is incredibly inconvenient. I have important emails to send. Never mind that 2 a.m. was hardly prime email sending time, or that weekends cost the company triple in contractor fees. She just needed everyone to know she was inconvenienced. Then came the Monday morning status meeting ambush. Our CEO held a brief all-hands meeting every Monday at 9 a.m. It was supposed to be a quick 15-minute alignment session. Karen began using it as her platform. Before we start, I just want to address how the IT department's constant Monday disruptions are affecting productivity. The CEO would look confused because there had been no disruptions, the maintenance had happened at 2 a.m., but Karen would press on. We need to discuss whether these so-called critical updates are really necessary. I tried the professional approach. I scheduled a meeting with her and patiently explained change management procedures, security protocols, and industry best practices. She listened with her arms crossed and then said, I have been here for 7 years, and we never needed this many updates before. I explained that cyber threats had evolved. She said, that sounds like fear-mongering. I showed her documentation from our security auditor. She said, I will be discussing this with the executives. She did discuss it with the executives. She also discussed it with anyone who would listen. She began stopping my team members in the hallway to interrogate them about upcoming maintenance. She would stand near our office door and make loud comments when we walked by. Oh look, the Monday maintenance crew is here. I wonder what they will break this week. She never actually said we broke anything because we never did, but the implication hung in the air like stale coffee. The breaking point came on a Monday in March. We had scheduled a critical firmware update for our phone system, again during a 2 a.m. window, with all the proper notices sent out. Everything went perfectly. System was down for 90 minutes, back up by 3:30 a.m., fully tested and operational before anyone arrived at work. But Karen's phone, her specific extension, had one tiny issue. Her speed dial numbers had reset. Not deleted, just reset. It took literally 45 seconds to reprogram them. 3 button presses. I walked her through it personally. She lost her mind. Not the quiet, professional, this is frustrating, response. Full meltdown. She shouted across the office that IT was incompetent. She sent an email to the CEO, the CFO, and the head of HR describing a catastrophic system failure that had destroyed critical business infrastructure. She used the word sabotage. She demanded my team be reprimanded. She suggested that maybe someone with more experience should be running IT, despite the fact that I had 15 years of experience and more certifications than she had statement necklaces. The executives sided with me because they understood technology and valued competence. But they also asked me to keep the peace and maybe give Karen a heads up before Monday maintenance windows. It was the corporate equivalent of asking the victim to accommodate the bully. I smiled and said I would do my best to maintain positive working relationships. That night, I went home to my house in the suburbs, poured myself a very expensive whiskey from my collection, bottles I could afford because IT directors at financial firms are compensated quite well, and I thought about Karen's desk setup. I had installed every piece of equipment she used. I had configured her computer, her monitors, her phone, her keyboard, her mouse. I had administrative access to every digital aspect of her work life. And I realized that if Karen wanted to make Mondays difficult, I could return the favor in ways she would never be able to prove. Monday morning arrived with its usual gray light. I got to the office at 6 a.m., 2 hours before Karen, which was normal for me. I had my coffee, checked the server logs, and then I took a walk to Karen's desk. Her setup was standard. Desktop computer under the desk, 2 monitors, wireless keyboard and mouse, phone, and about 47 motivational plaques that said things like, "She believed she could so she did," and "Boss Lady." The first change I made was simple. Windows has a built-in feature that lets you rotate your display orientation. It is meant for monitors that physically rotate between landscape and portrait mode. I logged into her computer remotely from my office and rotated her primary monitor's display 180 degrees. Everything would be upside down. Desktop icons, windows, mouse movement, all inverted. Then I waited. Karen arrived at 8:45, clinked her way past my office, and I heard her settle in at her desk. 15 minutes of silence. Then what is? More silence. The sound of her getting up, walking around her desk, the click-clack of her trying to physically rotate her monitor. It was bolted to a monitor arm, it did not rotate. More confused noises. Then she appeared at my door. My monitor is upside down. I looked up with practiced concern. That's strange. Did you maybe hit some keys by accident? I didn't touch anything. I walked over with her, pretended to examine the situation, and then, as if I had just discovered ancient wisdom, I said, "Oh, looks like the display got rotated in settings. Happens sometimes. Let me fix that." 3 clicks, back to normal. There you go. She stared at me suspiciously but had no recourse. It looked like a random glitch. I went back to my office and waited exactly 1 week. The next Monday, I implemented Phase 2. Windows has another great feature, accessibility options designed to help people with disabilities. One of them is mouse keys, which lets you control the mouse cursor with the number pad. Another is sticky keys, which treats modifier keys like Shift and Control as toggles instead of whole buttons. I enabled both on Karen's computer, but subtly. I set them to activate with unlikely but possible key combinations. I also adjusted her mouse sensitivity to maximum and turned on pointer trails. Karen's morning began normally. Then I heard, "Why is my mouse? It's going so fast." The sound of her picking up the mouse, examining it, putting it down. Movement sounds. Then, what are these beeping noises? Why is it beeping? That was sticky keys activating every time she tried to use a keyboard shortcut. Then silence, followed by the ominous sound of her standing up and speed-walking toward my office. Something is wrong with my computer. The mouse is insane and it keeps beeping at me. Another journey to her desk, another performance of technical troubleshooting. Looks like some accessibility features got turned on. And your mouse sensitivity got changed. Probably a Windows update that reset some settings. Let me adjust this. I fixed everything, showed her it was working perfectly, and suggested she restart her computer just to be safe, even though that was completely unnecessary. She did. Everything worked fine. Week 3, I got creative. I ordered a second wireless mouse, identical to hers, and paired it with her computer. I kept the second mouse in my office. Every so often throughout the day, I would randomly move it slightly. Her cursor would drift. She would grab her mouse to correct it. The cursor would drift again. Not constantly, just enough to be maddening. Once every 10 minutes or so, a gentle push of the cursor toward the edge of the screen. I watched from my office as she progressively lost her composure. She picked up her mouse and examined it multiple times. She changed the batteries even though they were fine. She tried using it on different surfaces. She called our help desk and spent 30 minutes describing intermittent cursor drift, while our help desk technician, who reported to me and knew exactly what was happening because I had briefed my team, expressed deep concern and promised to monitor the situation. Thursday of that week, Karen sent an email to the executives. The persistent computer problems affecting my workstation are severely impacting my productivity. I have reported these issues multiple times and they remain unresolved. I believe there may be a hardware problem that requires immediate attention from someone with appropriate expertise. Friday morning, I personally delivered a brand new mouse to her desk with a smile. I heard you were having cursor issues. Here's a new mouse, top of the line. Let me know if you have any more problems. The problem stopped. The second mouse went into my desk drawer like a trophy. But I was just getting started. Week 4 was keyboard week. I arrived early and carefully pried off several keys on her keyboard and swapped their positions. The M and the N switched places. The period and the comma traded spots. Subtle changes, letters that looked similar in shape. Then I took a photo of her keyboard layout, put it back exactly as it should be, and left. Monday morning, Karen's typing became a percussive symphony of confusion. I could hear the rhythm from my office. Type, 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 pause, type, angry backspace sounds, more typing, more backspacing. This continued for an hour. Then she appeared at my door, holding her keyboard like evidence in a trial. Someone switched the keys on my keyboard. I expressed appropriate concern. That's weird. Why would someone do that? I don't know, but look. She showed me. The keys were in the correct positions because I had never actually moved them. I had just made her think about them. I examined the keyboard carefully. These look normal to me. All the keys are in the right spots. See? QWERTY up top, ASDF on the home row. But I was typing and the letters were coming out wrong. Were you maybe looking at the keys instead of the screen? Sometimes that can throw off your muscle memory. I demonstrated by typing a quick sentence while looking only at the keys. See, if I watch my fingers instead of the screen, I make more mistakes. She stared at the keyboard, then at me, then back at the keyboard. She could not prove anything. The keys were correct. But for the rest of the day, I could hear her typing slowly, deliberately, questioning every keystroke. Week 5, I modified her autocorrect dictionary. Every time she typed her own name, it would autocorrect to Karen. Not Karen, Karen. A single letter off. Just enough to be wrong. I also added autocorrects for common phrases. Regards became retards, but I set it to only trigger occasionally, about 30% of the time, so she could never predict it. Meeting sometimes became meeting. Important occasionally became impotent. Her emails became minefields. I would see her sending messages and then immediately sending follow-ups. Apologies, autocorrect error. She started proofreading everything 3 times. Her email output slowed to a crawl. She blamed her phone, then her computer, then Microsoft. She never blamed me because why would the IT director sabotage one random person in HR? What possible motive would I have? Week 6 was audio week. I remotely adjusted her system sounds. Windows has event sounds for dozens of actions. I changed her email notification sound to a loud, aggressive air horn noise. But I set it to only play when she received emails from specific people she frequently complained about. Her computer would randomly blast an air horn, she would jump, and she would check her email to find a message from someone she already disliked. I was classically conditioning her to associate certain coworkers with jarring noises. I also changed her startup sound to a very long, very dramatic orchestral piece. Every time she booted her computer, her speakers would blast the opening of a Wagner opera at full volume. The first time it happened, I heard it from my office. The entire floor heard it. Karen scrambled to mute her computer while Ride of the Valkyries announced her arrival to the entire company. She submitted another help desk ticket. Unauthorized audio changes to workstation. Possible security breach. Our help desk technician, suppressing laughter, reset all her sounds to default and suggested she avoid downloading suspicious media files that might contain audio malware. Karen insisted she never downloaded anything. The technician nodded sympathetically and closed the ticket as user education provided. By week 7, Karen had become paranoid about her technology. She would arrive at her desk and spend 10 minutes checking everything before she started working. She would test her mouse, verify her keyboard, check her monitor orientation, and cautiously boot up her computer while hovering over the volume control. She started bringing her own keyboard from home. I let that one slide because her personal keyboard was Bluetooth, and Bluetooth devices are even more fun to mess with than wired ones. Week 8, I introduced the Phantom printer. Karen printed everything. She was that coworker who printed entire email chains for filing. Our department had 3 shared network printers. I created a 4th virtual printer that existed only on Karen's computer, named it something similar to the real printers like HP LaserJet 3 RD-Floor copy, and set it as her default. Whenever she printed, her documents would go into a queue on a printer that did not exist. They would just disappear into the digital void. She would send a document to print, walk to the printer, find nothing, walk back confused, print again, walk to the printer, still nothing. She tried all 3 printers physically. She asked coworkers if they had grabbed her documents by mistake. She submitted help desk tickets with increasing desperation. Print jobs not reaching printer. Critical business impact. My team would remote in, see the virtual printer, delete it, set her default back to a real printer, and tell her it was fixed. 2 days later, I would recreate the virtual printer. After the 4th time this happened, Karen requested a personal printer for her desk, citing ongoing infrastructure problems with shared resources. The request was denied because personal printers violated our cost control policies that Karen herself had helped write. The irony was delicious. Week 9 was font week. I changed her default system font from Calibri to Wingdings. Wingdings is that font that turns letters into symbols. Every application that used the system default, which was most of them, would now display text as random symbols and icons. Her desktop icon labels became hieroglyphics. Her file explorer became ancient Egyptian scrolls. Her sticky notes app became cryptographic puzzles. She called me directly, bypassing the help desk entirely. My computer is broken. Everything is symbols. I think I have a virus. I arrived at her desk with my tablet, projecting efficiency. Let's take a look. I clicked through some settings, made thoughtful sounds, and then delivered my diagnosis. Looks like your font settings got corrupted. Probably from a Windows update. I will reset everything to default. I fixed it in less than a minute. How do I prevent this from happening again? Make sure you install updates as soon as they are available. Sometimes delaying updates can cause conflicts. The beautiful part was that this was actually good advice that had nothing to do with her problem. But it made her feel like she had some control, which made her less likely to escalate to executives again. Week 10, I got philosophical. I created a script that would randomly transpose 2 adjacent characters in whatever she was typing. Not every time, just occasionally. She would type, "Please find the attached report," and it would come out, "Pelas fnid te attached report." Not enough to trigger spell check because many of the words were still plausible, but enough to make her question her basic ability to type. She started typing slower and slower, watching the screen with intense concentration. Her productivity was plummeting. She was spending hours each day dealing with technical issues that were never there when anyone else looked at her system. Other people in HR started noticing. "Karen, are you okay? You seem stressed." She would launch into explanations about the cursed technology, and they would nod politely while exchanging glances that said, "Karen is losing it." Week 11, I modified her calendar. Outlook lets you adjust time zones for individual appointments. I started randomly changing the time zones on her meetings. A 9 a.m. meeting would suddenly show as 11 a.m. because I had changed it to Pacific time, and we were in Eastern. She would show up 2 hours late, confused and apologetic. Or she would show up 2 hours early because I had changed a 2 p.m. meeting to display in Atlantic time. Her reputation for reliability evaporated. She accused other people of changing her meeting times. She accused Outlook of being broken. She printed her calendar every morning and carried it with her. But of course, the printed version showed the wrong times too because that was what her computer believed was correct. She started asking people to send her meeting invites via email as text in the body of the message rather than as calendar appointments. This annoyed everyone and made her seem technologically incompetent. Week 12, I implemented the Great Browser Betrayal. I changed her browser's homepage to a random website about cats. Not inappropriate, just cats. Cute photos of cats. Every time she opened her browser, cats. She would change it back to the company intranet homepage. Next day, cats again. She cleared her cache and cookies. Still cats. She asked me to look at it. I changed it back to the intranet and suggested, "Maybe you have a browser extension causing this." She did not, but she spent an hour researching browser extensions and what they do. I also modified her browser's search engine to Bing instead of Google. This might not seem like much, but Karen was a Google purist who had, on multiple occasions, sent department emails about proper search techniques using Google. Now her searches defaulted to Bing. She would notice mid-search and have to manually change it back. Then it would reset. Over and over. By month 4, Karen was a shell of her former self. The woman who had once policed coffee maker etiquette now approached her desk each morning like a soldier entering a minefield. Her confident stride had become a cautious shuffle. Her reply-all emails had stopped entirely because she could not trust her computer to send what she actually typed. She had filed 17 help desk tickets in 4 months, and each one had been resolved by my helpful team. The executives noticed the change. In our monthly leadership meeting, the CFO mentioned that Karen seemed overwhelmed, and maybe she needed additional training on our systems. I magnanimously offered to provide one-on-one coaching sessions to help her become more comfortable with technology. Karen declined in an email that was typed so slowly and carefully that it must have taken her 30 minutes to write 3 sentences. Then came week 17, and I decided to implement the finale. I had been patient, methodical, and subtle. But Karen had made one final mistake. She had sent an email to the CEO suggesting that the company invest in more reliable technology infrastructure and maybe consider whether our current IT leadership has the expertise to manage enterprise systems. She copied half the executive team. She attached a document titled Ongoing Technology Failures and Business Impact that listed every single issue she had experienced, describing them as systemic infrastructure problems indicating deeper organizational incompetence. The CEO forwarded it to me with a one-line message. "Can you review and provide your assessment?" I could have explained everything. I could have shown the logs proving every issue was isolated to her machine. I could have revealed the phantom mouse in my drawer. But that would require admitting what I had done, and that was not the play here. Instead, I did something more elegant. I scheduled a company-wide upgrade to Windows 11, something we had been planning anyway. I sent out the standard notices. 72 hours in advance, detailed explanation of changes, planned maintenance window, the works. Professional and by the book. But I added one special touch. I personally configured Karen's upgrade to install every single optional feature, every accessibility tool, every notification, every piece of bloatware that Microsoft offers. I enabled Cortana with voice activation. I turned on every system sound. I activated the News and Interests widget. I enabled Focus Assist on a random schedule. I set up multiple virtual desktops. I turned on clipboard history with Cloud Sync. I enabled every animation and transition effect. Her computer became a sensory overload nightmare. Pop-ups about features. Cortana randomly listening and responding. News widgets sliding in from the side. Animations for every window movement. Notification sounds for everything. It was technically a complete, successful upgrade with all official Microsoft features. Nothing broken, everything working as designed. Just overwhelming and chaotic. Monday morning after the upgrade, I listened to the symphony. Notification sounds, Cortana saying, "Sorry I didn't catch that." More notifications, confused muttering from Karen's desk. Within an hour, she appeared at my door, and I could see she was on the verge of tears. "I can't work like this. My computer is unusable." I went to her desk and spent 90 minutes methodically turning off every feature, explaining each one, showing her the settings, and configuring her system to be clean and minimal. I was patient, kind, and thorough. When I finished, her computer was actually better than it had been before the upgrade. Faster, cleaner, more efficient. There you go. All set. I know these upgrades can be overwhelming with all the new features. Let me know if you need anything else. For the first time in 4 months, Karen looked at me without suspicion. She looked grateful. She thanked me. She sent an email to the CEO praising my patience and expertise in resolving complex technical issues. She stopped complaining about Monday maintenance windows. She stopped sending passive-aggressive emails about the IT department. She never knew. She never suspected. She just believed that technology was complicated and sometimes frustrating, and that the nice IT director was always there to help her when things went wrong. Which, from a certain perspective, was absolutely true. The executives never doubted my competence because every issue was documented as resolved and every resolution proved my team's expertise. My team never questioned the approach because they understood that sometimes dealing with difficult personalities requires creative solutions. And Karen learned, though she could not articulate why, that making enemies of the people who control your technology is a battle you cannot win. I still live for Mondays. And now, so does Karen, because Mondays are when everything finally works the way it is supposed to. At least, that is what she believes. If you enjoyed this tale of technical justice, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to KarenEatWorld. We have got plenty more stories about entitled people learning important lessons about who they choose to antagonize. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens when Karens meet their match.